Awesome, fantastic, thank you so much. We are here to talk about talent. We are here to talk about cultivating and empowering talent. So business would be so much easier if we had a great team of people in place, right? Beats trying to do everything yourself. Of course, it's easier if you have a great team of people. But how do I find these people? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. But first, a little bit about us. Rachel, tell us about you.
Hi, I'm Rachel Stewart. I am the founder of Accelerate Restoration Software. We do job management. But before that, I ran a restoration company for about 13 years. We scaled from 1.5 to over 20 million in annual revenue. And so there was a lot of growing pains for me, and there's a lot that I learned in the process of doing that we hope to bring, and I can tell you about the way that we tried to cultivate and grow talent within our organization, and then how we brought that over to Accelerate. So.
Awesome. And I am Shauna Parsons. I'm a business advisor at Violin Management, and I come from a long line of construction people. My father was a construction guy, and he probably should have had sons and not daughters, but it didn't matter to him because my sister and I learned how to pour concrete anyway at a very young age. And then as we grew, he decided at some point he wanted to retire, and I took over his concrete business. I added several services, several verticals, grew it into a much, much bigger company than he had ever imagined, and then I sold in 2016. And ever since then, I've been helping business owners scale their business. In my business, I've done a really good job of building a good team and a good team of managers, and so I want to share with you some of the lessons learned from that, the good and the bad. So we talk all the time about challenges in business. And one of the biggest challenges in business is, of course, finding and keeping good employees. I think that if we did a poll of everybody, I think that would come probably top 3 for so many people. But here's the thing. There are companies that don't struggle with it as much as others, and we want to know what's their secret. And what we found is that the companies that don't struggle so much with finding and keeping good employees are employing some of the methodology in Blue Ocean Strategy, where they are not fishing in the same pond as everyone else. They're figuring out different ways so that they don't have to compete with all the companies around them for good talent. And that's what I did in my company as well. You see, it seems like leaders spend 1% of their time hiring and 99% of the time managing their hiring mistakes. And that's not how we build a good team. And so we want to definitely get away from that. But first we need to realize that people are different. There are people that come to us with integrity and work ethic and drive and the desire to learn. We love those people. But there's also people who come to us with other traits that aren't quite so endearing. So I think what drives me nuts with business leaders is when I hear them talk about, oh, we need people. We need to hire bodies, they say. We need to hire bodies. And it kills me because what I'm hearing them say is, I'm going to spend 1% of my time finding someone, knowing I'm going to spend 99% of my time fixing that problem. You see, when you hire bodies, you are hiring bodies, but you're not hiring integrity, work ethic, drive, good ideas, innovation. You're not hiring any of that. You got yourself a body. But along with that body often comes attendance issues, drama, and a variety of other traits that we don't want in our team. And then what happens is they stop coming to work, they start being a problem, they start causing drama, they start being resistors in our organization, and so we fire them. And then we gotta hire again. And we can't find any good people. And so what do? We hire another body. And the cycle continues, and all we keep doing is churning through people that weren't right for our organization to begin with. They weren't the right people. I'll hire someone with drive and ability and integrity and teach them what we do any day over someone who has some skills in what we do, but has a bad attitude, right? And a whole lot of people nod along. Absolutely, I will hire someone with integrity and good attitude over somebody that has some skill but a bad attitude. Yeah. But we don't actually practice that, do we? Because what happens is we have jobs that need to get done, and customers are waiting, and things that need to happen, and we have a spot to fill, and we need to hire somebody, so we fall into that bad trait of hiring blindly and hiring not for the right traits, not for the right team member, but for these skills that they have to do the work. And it's great if you can find someone that comes with both. If they have the integrity and they have those awesome traits that we want in our team members, but they also have the skills to do the work. That's fantastic. Hire them when you fire them. When you hire them and they're there for you, man, that's awesome. But don't trade. Don't trade. What happens is when we hire these people that aren't good for our organization because they don't come with the right qualities that we want, they actually do damage to our organization. They actually cause damage to our reputation, to our quality, to our leadership, to us as a company. So when you hire people, you have an organization that has a high amount of these resistors, these bad apples, I like to call them. You end up with a low amount of your superstars. So what happens when we change that dynamic? And instead of hiring these problems, we actually end up hiring there we go. We actually we've raised our standards of the type of person that we want to hire. What happens is our superstars, our good apples, we end up with more of them. You see, superstars and the really good people that are out in the workplace, they don't want to work for a place where there's a whole bunch of bad apples. That's not their people, right? We all want to be around our people. That's why you come here. You want to be around your people. Well, so do your employees. They want to be around your people. So if they're around these bad apples, they won't stay. So when you're comparing the quick and easy, let's hire someone skilled, even if they're going to be potentially a culture problem, because we can get the work done now, versus let's hire somebody that's the right kind of person for our team and develop them, we're making a decision not just about how to get work done now, we're making a decision about the long-term effects of our company and our ability to hire A players in our company. I write a script, and I do such a good job. I spend a lot of time writing a script, and then I completely go off script. Do it every time. Do it every time. So what ends up happening is those resistors, those employees that weren't right for your organization are going to push out the good people, because the good people are either going to switch to the dark side or they're going to leave. So bad apples really do spoil the whole barrel, don't they? So here's the thing. Maybe let's reevaluate what we talked about earlier as our business challenge. Maybe actually the root cause of our business challenge is not that we can't find good people, right? And maybe it's what we're trying to do is we are trying to accomplish great things with not the right people. We make things a little bit harder on ourselves than we used to. My mother used to say, I'd make more work on myself trying to get out of work. She would say that. I was that kid that never cleaned their room. Man, I go off script like crazy. I was that kid that never cleaned their room, and my mother would walk into my room and go, she would throw in a garbage bag and say, clean your room. Don't leave your room until it's clean. And she would tell me all the time, I make more work on myself trying to get out of work. Well, that's what we do with our hiring sometimes. We make more work on ourselves by taking shortcuts instead of finding the right people for our organization, okay? But we have to start with a reality here. And a reality is you have to be the company great people want to go and work. They're betting their career on you. Are you the place they should go? Are you the right leader? Will a great new hire fit in your organization? Because they can go anywhere. They're great superstar employees. They can go anywhere. All right, so let's be real for a minute here. And let's talk about our organizations. And let's be real here and decide whether or not we are the type of organizations where superstars will work. Okay? So, are you a good leader in your employees' eyes? Your current employees. If you asked your current employees, are you a good leader? No, don't ask them. Someone else ask them. It's going to be much better information. Are you a good leader? Think about these as we look at them. It's funny, I can't read that. Are your employees high-quality people? Like we said, great employees don't want to hang around with people who are bad apples. It's not their people. Do you have a clear plan to win? And I mean for a good employee to win. Nothing frustrates a good employee more than not knowing when they're succeeding in their position. Do they know when they're succeeding? Does your company have a clear vision, mission, values clearly laid out? I know I've heard this in several different sessions today, and I really hope by now, if you don't have one, you have one, or you make plans to sit down and draw one up, because it really is that important. It's your roadmap so everyone knows where you're going as a company. You may know in here, but everyone else needs to know too. Do you have great training programs? I think we have access to lots of great training programs, but are we using them? Does your facility and your equipment inspire quality and pride? Or are you running around in rad-tack pickup trucks with the old magnetic signs on the side and rusty tailgates? Because great people don't work there. Can people proudly share where they work with their friends and family? And that's a big one. That's a question to ask, and you're seeing people's perspective, your employees' perspective, or your candidate's perspective of who you are as a company. Will they proudly be at a party and say, I work at, or will they be like, yeah, I fix houses? There's a big difference there. And being proud of where you work and the organization you work for is a big deal. Do you have a good reputation in the community? A big deal, right? A big deal for a lot of people, especially the younger generations. Well, actually for everyone. All right, so now that we've established the kind of place where great people work, if any of these things on this list, you didn't like your answer, congratulations, you got an action item for your list for when you leave here. Write that down. Because you do need to work on it. You will forever be complaining about not being able to find good employees if you don't create the environment where good employees want to work. All right, so in my business, I was in a small town in the South, in Virginia. And in my business, we had our own vision, mission, value, of course, in our business. But actually, I've had my own personal mission for years. And it's sent me through, all the business and even beyond. And my personal mission is I build better men. That's been my mission for years and years. And I felt like I was uniquely poised as a business owner in a small town to be able to really make a difference with the youth and the young men and provide jobs in that small town. So that's what I did. And I made it my mission to do everything I can. It's funny. I often feel like a greater purpose for business, right, is to provide a strong place where people can work. It's being a good steward in the community. I feel like as businesses, we have an obligation to that. And I feel like it's an opportunity, a unique opportunity that we get. And I actually feel that as part of the trades, I think that we even have a more unique opportunity to be able to provide a platform for some of the young people in the community to learn, grow, and be part of a trade. So we all want to change the world, right? Remember back when we were straight out of high school? We all wanted to change the world. We were bound to determine we were going to change the world. And we thought at that time, in order to change the world, we had to make these big sweeping gestures. Well, actually, in order to change the world, you start by changing the world around you. And we are in such a unique opportunity and such a unique time to be able to do that. To be able to change the world around us in our community by providing great jobs in the trades and the training and the ability for young people to be able to get into the trades. And if this fits into your mission, your company's vision, then I encourage you to do it. I like to think of it as working with potential energy, okay? So when you hire good quality team members that come with all those awesome traits that we want, we need to pour into them. They come as raw material that we need to mold and shape, right? And then we act upon them with great training and coaching and encouragement and turn that potential energy into kinetic energy, okay? Sounds so simple, doesn't it? And everybody's thinking, yeah, but none of these kids want to work today, right? And I know you're thinking, none of these kids want to work today. But that's not true. And here's why I want to tell you that that's not true. You cannot put all the kids in this generation in one group. Just like you couldn't put us in a group in our generation or anybody in a geographic location and think everyone's the same. They are not all the same. There are lots of kids that don't want to work. They've been, had a certain kind of upbringing, and they maybe haven't seen the benefits of work ethic and making your way in life. But there are a whole lot that have, okay? So I don't subscribe to that theory, and let me prove it to you why I don't. Okay, so we'll stand here and we'll say kids don't want to work today, but on the other side of our mouth, we'll talk about how, oh my gosh, these kids are always doing these activities. I'm running them to soccer, and I'm running them to gymnastics, and they're doing all these things. They're busy all the time. Yeah, they are. I used to drive by the high school, and I used to see a marching band out in the Virginia sun all summer, practicing their music and their choreography, sweating all day long. 100 kids. It happens at every high school that has a marching band in your area. 100 kids that are willing to put in that kind of work ethic. So they are out there, and they are learning, and they are practicing, and they are getting better. And they are learning their skill, and being part of a team, right? And they're showing up every day, dependable, part of their team. That sounds like traits I'd like in an employee. And what about the football team? My goodness, the football team, they exercise, they practice, they scrimmage, they play, right? And they're out there on the field learning, and they're getting feedback from their coaches, and they're running the play again, and they're trying again, and they're using that feedback to get better and better and develop their skills, and all the while encouraging their team members to level up. That also sounds like a whole lot of traits I'd like in an employee. But they don't know how to do what we do, right? They don't know how to do what we do. Well, you know what? Neither did you until you learned. And someone taught you. You weren't born knowing how to dry out a building, okay? Someone had to teach you. So we teach them. Because they come with the skills and the soft skills, the ability to learn. So they didn't go and join marching band as accomplished musicians. They didn't join the football team as seasoned athletes. No, they joined as awesome potential, as raw material that those coaches and teachers and club leaders took and molded into something and taught them the skills needed because they were willing and they were there and they showed up. These are the kids, by the way. Back in my day, we used to say it's the kids that get stuffed in the locker that are going to rule the world, right? Well, it's these kids now. It's these kids that are spending hours every week putting the work in to their chosen activity or sport. So what I did was I identified in my area who was pouring into the young leaders. And in my small town, southern town, where Friday Night Lights is a thing, it was the football coach. And the football coach taught these kids so much more than just plays. He was growing young men. They were a fantastic coach. And I swear he taught them more about work ethic and being a team member than I think he even did about football plays. But whatever he was doing, it worked. They won several state titles. But not all those kids could go to college, unfortunately. And so I worked with the football coach to make sure that those kids that couldn't go to college, those kids that were out there playing on the field every day with their heart, you know, they were supporting their team members, they were putting the work in, that I had a place where they can continue to excel, that I had a place where I could pour into them just like the coach did and teach them where they can grow and excel. I did that. And I worked with all the leaders in the area that did the same thing, that poured into the young people. And I hired a lot of people, a lot of kids. I smile when I say it because they're all grown men now with houses and wives and kids. And you know, I tell people all the time, one of the best achievements that you'll have in your business is not how big your number got at the top or at the bottom or how big of a job you did. But later on, when you're not in your business anymore, it actually becomes names. The names of the people that your business touched. And this was my way of getting to that. I don't even know why I write a script at this point, honestly. I really don't. So get involved with the people who are pouring into the young people in your area. This is potential energy that you can act upon and you can make them great. All right, so by the way, this ends up being a mission for the whole team. So just like I can say the names of the people that we touched their lives and changed them because we brought them on, so could my lead techs, my foreman, my superintendents. They could tell you, and they loved it, by the way, because somebody had poured into them. And this was their chance to pour into someone else. This was their chance to rise up the youth around them in their community. And they took it and they ran with it. So, mine's the easy part, quite frankly, finding them. But we've identified a potential pool of great new team members. And now, don't get me wrong. This does not solve your problem right now, okay? Quite frankly, it does not solve your problem right now. It could, because you get out there looking, you never know what you'll find. But the problem is here, how long have you been talking about we can't find good people? 4, 5, 6, 8 years? Until we do something different, nothing's going to be different. So maybe we're solving your problem today, but maybe I'm solving a problem permanently. All right, so we end up with young people in our organization that we need to grow and we need to work with. And so now we talk about the elephant in the room. How are we going to do that? And this is where I get the easy part of being able to go, Rachel, how do we do that?
Great. I want to take a minute and do a detour. This wasn't planned. But a month ago, almost exactly, the last time I spoke in public, I was speaking at my older brother's funeral. And he passed away by suicide. And I told a story about how when I was 15, I climbed up to the top, him and I, at Six Flags. We climbed up to the top of a tower, and we jumped off. And I told the audience how my brother taught me how to be brave. And the things that we do every day as restorers, and especially if you're doing this is your company, and you're doing the entrepreneurial journey, it's brave. And sometimes it's scary, and sometimes it requires a lot of lonely nights, and leadership is lonely. And I just want to acknowledge that as I'm acknowledging my brother. So, and I want to also just address that there is a mental health crisis, and if you're in that place, and this is lonely, and this is hard, you're not alone, and there are people that love you, and that are here for you. And now we'll get into some things that you can do for your business. I went fishing. He was an avid fisherman, so on Monday I had some time and I chartered a boat and I went fishing, just him and me and the captain. I caught some really great fish. He sent some great fish. So anyway, if you're staying, you should go do that. Okay, so we're going to talk about the fundamentals. There are, before we can get anywhere, I think these are two things that you need to have in your business, and they're pretty easy to do. And if you don't know how to do it, I'm sure a lot of you are doing it already because you run great businesses. But we're going to just address them really quickly because I don't think we can do anything until we have these two fundamentals. And one is a position profile. So before you hire anybody, before you talk about any of this potential that you're going to go develop in somebody, you need to have a very, very, very clear picture of what you are hiring for and what that person and that role is going to do. So this is just an example of a position profile for somebody at Accelerate, an SDR or a lead generator, and you can't see it, and there's a reason for that. It's not important. But I'm just laying out what a general position profile should look like. So it should have what the role is, who that position reports to, what the core values of the company are, because those core values, they're not just words, they should be alive and well, and you should be talking about them all the time in your business. So whoever you're hiring should know that when they're being hired, and you need to be hiring to those core values, okay? So what those core values are, and then what the role is designed to do. So I'm hiring this person to fulfill this. If it's a lead water technician, the role is to respond to emergency services, orient the customer, get contracts signed, walk the loss, assess the damage, take pictures, photos, notes, whatever the thing is. It all needs to be written out and like what the job role is, okay? It should have like maybe 5 or 6 main bullet points, okay? And then after that, the next page should have the accountability and the measurable KPIs to say yes or no, this person is doing a good job. So the first accountability for a water technician might be they need to be able to, they're going to communicate, right? They're going to document a loss. They're going to, so that's what the accountability is. What are the results of that? Every day they're going to have documented paperwork that comes back from a loss. It's going to go into the job management system. They're going to log in. They're going to take all the pictures. They're going to do whatever. And then this is the KPI that's going to say whether or not that is going to happen, okay? So you need to start with the outcome. So we'll skip ahead and then we might have to go back a little bit. So what is the outcome? We start with an outcome. So maybe the outcome for a financial person who's managing your AR is that you want your AR to be below 20 days. Okay, so the KPI is going to be the key performance indicator that is going to tell you whether or not that is likely to happen. It's going to be the thing that is going to drive the results. So a possible KPI for that could be what percentage of jobs are 100% documented, right? Or what percentage of jobs get billed within 24 hours of having a COC signed. Those are just some examples. And there's probably a million different KPIs that you could come up with. Another example might be the customer NPS score is above 80. Okay, that's the outcome you want. Okay, what are going to be the things that are going to drive that outcome? Okay, what's the average job cycle time? What percentage of jobs have daily communication to the customers? Okay, so for every position profile, let me see if I can go back. Yep. Okay, so for every accountability, you need to have the results, and then the 3 or so KPIs that are going to be tied to that accountability. Okay, so each job probably has 6 or 7 of those accountabilities, the results, and the KPIs. Any questions so far? Is this all old news for everybody? Okay, then the last thing on that position profile should be the characteristics of factors to success. So what are the characteristics that this person I'm hiring needs to possess in order to be successful? So not everybody is infinitely talented. I know some of you are, but not every person that you hire is going to be this way. So you need to make sure that their strengths are going to align with the things that you're asking them to do. So you need to make sure that, okay, they are self-motivated. Maybe that's one of the positions that you're looking for, that they need to be self-motivated, that they need to have good communication skills, that they need to be able to document correctly, something like that, okay? So how many of you guys have something like this, a position profile in your company, alive and well and operating? Okay, maybe half. So hopefully there was something there of value. If you need any help putting together a position profile, just email me. I'm happy to send you some examples, and I'm sure you could throw it in ChatGPT and tell them what your position is, and then you could probably get position profiles really good. The downside with using AI like that is that it can't just be a paper. Like, it doesn't make a difference if it's just written on a piece of paper. Like, this has to be something that lives in your company and that you're utilizing, if that makes sense. But it can do the legwork to get you half the way there. Okay, so we have position profiles. And then the other thing that we talked about was KPIs. So KPIs are something that you want to have across the board in all of your positions. Key performance indicators that you're measuring on a regular basis. So I have some cheat sheets for you. If you want, there are a couple of, if you download that, there's some key KPIs for certain positions in the industry, like an estimator, sample KPIs, or whatever. Or there's also ones for your company that you could be measuring. Now, I will say that this is also not a one-size-fits-all thing. Depending on what you're working on that quarter or that year, your KPIs will probably change. It's not something that you just say, this is the KPI, and then you leave it and never touch it. There's probably some growth trajectories, some strategy that you're trying to put into your company, some long-term vision that you have. And so each quarter, those KPIs might change depending on what you're doing. So you might be thinking, hey, you know what, we're really going to be focused on commercial work or getting into healthcare. And so these are the KPIs that we are going to need to be focused on for this period of time while we focus on getting into this vertical. Because commercial work or healthcare work or anything like that is going to be different than regular residential. So just keep that in mind as you're creating KPIs in your company, that they sometimes need to be fluid, and even for positions, they can sometimes be fluid depending on what you're focused on. That make sense? Okay. So in addition to the KPIs, there's also some reporting there. Like if you're looking at certain reporting that you want to start looking at and tracking in your company, there's some examples of things that might be helpful. And again, these aren't end-all be-all, they're just some examples to get you started. Okay. So once you have that, then you need to be keeping score, right? Like, nobody likes to play in a game that keeps score. Like, do you ever watch the All-Star games? They're like terrible, right? Because nobody really cares what the score is, and nobody's really trying, and you're just out there, people on the court. Okay, so scoreboards matter, and your employees care. They want to win. They want to be a part of a winning team. And the only way you can know if you're winning is if you have a goal that you're working towards, or you know what the score is, and you're comparing against yourself every single day. Okay? So figure out how you're going to do that in your company, and then make it public. Make it transparent. Don't withhold information from your employees. That's like probably the worst thing you can do. So make it transparent. And even if you're like, hey, we can't trust these numbers because the information that we're putting into our system isn't accurate, right? Like, we have technicians that are putting things or dates in that don't match, or they don't put in information, so we can't trust the numbers, and so we don't want to report the numbers. Well, the only way that you're going to start getting accurate numbers if you start reporting the information and they care about what's being reported, And then they're more motivated to actually put in information that actually tells you where you are. So it has to mean something to them in order to get better data inside whatever system that you are using to track. So I will say that you should be using some sort of system. Like, we're in a technology age. You should be using some sort of job management system that can track data, that then you can start reporting on data, and there's so many tools, and you can have every single report that you ever wanted. You know, it's like BI and all sorts of things can splice data all sorts of ways. So yeah, bad data in will mean bad data out, but at least starting somewhere will give you some sort of measure to start improving data. Okay, any questions so far? Great. Okay, so what can you do after that? So after you have a position profile and you have KPIs, like, that's what you need to be doing for every position, and that's the bare minimum. And if your employees aren't being able to hit those KPIs, then we're not probably ready to go to a next step. So just keep working with them until they can start hitting those KPIs. If they're never hitting the KPIs, you might want to look at your KPI, because maybe the KPI is the problem, maybe the expectation. You have to be like, is the expectation the problem? Do I have the wrong person as the problem? Or am I the problem? That could be a problem too. So, so sometimes we think what should be possible or what should be happening in a role, just our expectations are out of whack, and we need to look at that. And sometimes it may require, hey, I need to go spend time with this employee out in the field to actually see what they're experiencing, right? So we might think, hey, they should be able to hit 8 or 9 jobs a day. And the reality is they hit traffic, they have a homeowner that needs a lot of hand-holding, whatever, and you're only hitting half that. And so the KPI is the problem. The employee is not the problem, the KPI is the problem. And then sometimes you just have an employee that this isn't the right fit, and you have to make some adjustment there. Okay. But after you do this, okay, that's level 1, you can do some KPIs. Then the next step is something that's called a skills matrix. Okay, you can also, I'll have a download where you could download this, but this just gives you an idea. So let's say you want somebody, you have a great water technician, and they have aspirations to someday be a water coordinator or to manage your water division. And you want to provide that growth for that person. You're like, I think they have it in them. Okay, so then you would look at what all of the skill sets are for a great water division manager, okay? And then you would put that in the top, okay? All of the skills that they would need, starting at the simplest or most basic to the most advanced skill. And then we're gonna do a scoring system. Okay, so a 0 score means they cannot do this thing at all. They have no experience and they are bad at it. Okay, and then it goes from 1 to 4. 1 being they have a desire, they have some exposure, they're still new at it. And then 2, and it goes up to 4, okay? And so you could sit down with this person with their agreement and say, hey, I have aspirations for you to be in this role, assuming these criteria are met, and if we can develop your skill set, are you interested in doing this? And then you get their buy-in, and then say, okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna meet on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis, whatever it is, and we're gonna be working on some of these skills. I'm gonna give you feedback on where you are, and then we're gonna look at how we can practice that in your current position and practice some of these opportunities to start developing these skills, right? So that is a way that you can start developing the talent within your organization and giving them a roadmap, and it's concrete, it's coaching, you're working together, they're coming back to you and reporting, how did it go? How did this skill set work? Like, what did you do? What are you working on? Now, if this is like 25 skills, you're not working on 25 simultaneously. Like you're starting with 1 or 2 or 3 because they're still having to manage their regular day-to-day job. The thing is you don't want KPIs that are slipping because they're not being able to focus on that because they're thinking about the future. So you pick 1 or 2 that you're like, okay, we'll work on this quarter and we'll start getting these, and you figure out which ones are the most critical to your company. Maybe you don't want 25 skills. Like it would be awesome that somebody had all 25 and was scoring high on all of them, but maybe they don't really need that. Maybe there's time once they get into that role they can keep working on them. So find out what is the most critical right now and then focus on those and then have some back and forth coaching. Give them feedback. You know, make it safe to fail. You have to give people some runway where they can fail, and then they can then be like, okay, that's okay. We're gonna just pick it up. We're gonna try again. What would you do differently? Seeing it now from this perspective, and have some dialogue to work through that. Okay, so if you want, there's a sample skills matrix. You can download it. Oh, by the way, we tested this yesterday, and it was all going into promotion. So if you're like, hey, I filled out the info, and then I never got the email, check your promotion or your junk mail, and then you'll be able to find it. So I'll give everybody a little bit of time. They can pull that up. It's just like an Excel document, and then you can change whatever you want, and you can change, like on the side, there's dates. It has every month. If you're not wanting to meet or work on that every month, you can change it to whatever date you want, and you can change the skills over the top. But you could take, you know, a position profile from like a water division manager, put it in there, and then you can use that on a water tech or vice versa, you know, for any role. Any questions about that? No? Oh, yeah.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For a company that's a smaller business and you're trying to grow and cultivate people, but you don't really know if those opportunities are going to be available. You don't know what your company growth is. Like you'd love to make somebody a, you know, lead estimator, you know, head of a team, but leads aren't there. Your business growth isn't there. How do you implement that without instilling false hope for, you know, a position that may not exist? You know,
Well,
like that's a challenge,
yeah.
I think, for a small business.
That's a great question. So you guys all heard it. She wants to know, like, how can you do this if you can't guarantee that a position will be there when they... So I will say that your company will grow at the speed that your employees do. So if you start doing some of these things, your business is going to grow in that way. So you may not want to be promising them, hey, I'm growing you to be this, because that may not be true, but you still may want to go through the exercise of like, hey, I'm growing you for you, right? Because what we're really doing is we're investing in people for their life, right? Hopefully these skill sets, they're being able to take home and apply to their family or in the community or whatever. So that leadership isn't like, I don't know, just tied to your organization. So these are great things to do if you have the capacity to still pour into your people, and then the position may be there, or they may be able to then take that opportunity and go and find, I mean, you're not trying to necessarily like outgrow your stuff, but yeah. So, but you know, if you're like, hey, this is too far, start back with a position profile. Start back with KPIs. And then as your company grows, as there's more, maybe as you have more support, which then means you have more time, then you can start doing some other steps. Does that make sense? Any other questions? Okay. So what happens if you start doing the skills matrix with somebody, and then you're like, they're not really, like we're spending a lot of time on some of these skills and they're not developing. What do you do? So I think transparency and honesty is a great thing to have with your employees, right? So because you have done this together, they are aware of what skills are needed for this position. They are also able to see, I may not be a good fit for this position, right? So it's helping them recognize what you're both seeing and then saying, okay, well, what are the other career trajectories? What maybe am I more in a position to be able to do well? Because you want to set them up for success. You want them to feel good about what they're doing every day when they come to work. That you want them leaving feeling like, I'm good at my job. Like, there's a certain confidence that comes with what you guys do every day and that you're giving your employees to then go home or wherever and spread whatever it is that they're. So don't set them up to fail, like give them an opportunity, and then if it's not a right fit, like there's no promise, right? You're telling your employee when you start this, we're gonna see if you have the skill sets that make this a position that's possible for you, and if not, then we'll figure out what is a good fit. And maybe what they're really good at is being that water technician. And so you're like, how do I put them in a position to be the best water technician and a lead water technician that now can train other water technicians or can replicate? So you see, okay, where is the path or the career trajectory? And maybe it's not in your organization after a certain period of time, but you give them the skill set to be able to recognize that and then make some decisions. Okay, other questions that anybody has? Has anybody tried something similar to this? What's your experience been? Do you mind sharing that? Has it worked well for you?
What was that question again?
Have you put something like this into your organization, and what has your experience been?
Yes. So when we started using Accelerate, it started making me look at the employee level rather than
I
just...
didn't plant
Nope,
that, but I love you.
I've never talked to her, so yeah, but it is nice to meet you. When we started using Accelerate, we started focusing more on the employee level because you know, Accelerate's full of the KPIs and things like that, and we started utilizing that with our project managers and along with our technicians and carpenters. And we really made it a fun process that, okay, who's at the top of the KPI list? And we really announced those month after month after month. Everybody started understanding what their jobs were, their job description. And then at each level, we go level 1 through 5 and what each role and responsibility was through each level. But we use those KPIs to really drive that home. And like I said, we just had fun with it. There were some guys who didn't like the competition, didn't like being compared to others, and those guys didn't survive very long. But, you know, we use the KPIs as a fun process and kind of a fun game, and we really utilized that to identify who our A players were and who our C and D players were.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Any other experiences with maybe coaching? Maybe you haven't used the skills matrix, but I know there's a lot of just experience in the room, just being able to coach somebody into a position as you were growing. No.
We've had the working? Okay. Yeah. So we had a repair technician. He's been with us for 16 years, 17 years, and just always been hanging drywall, putting trim up and paint, and always had this dream to be a project manager. And we've tried a couple times and could just not get it to land or stick. And we've stepped into new roles. I've been a general manager for a few years, and we've created systems, processes, some accountability, and test out sheets for these positions. So this last time we tried with him, it stuck, and he's been doing it for about a year and a half now. Really confident in what he's doing, and we've seen like his whole personality, just his personal confidence, everything change, making double what he was a year and a half ago. He shows up as a better dad, better person, and it's just been fun to see somebody change. And what it took was the right systems, the right processes, the accountability, and holding them to it rather than just throwing them at it and trying to make it work.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I can't see you very well. Is that Nate?
yeah.
Hey, congratulations on your award yesterday. That's awesome. Nate Tobin. So I heard two things. So one was maybe they needed a little time to mature, but it also sounded like maybe it took you a little time to mature as a leader as well. So there's some changes and things that you did that then also maybe some changes in their life or some motivations that changed. And so the combination of those two things finally clicked and made it possible. Anyway, I don't know if can I put you guys on the spot? So you see this all the time, right? Like you see business owners, and how much of the times is it the problem with maybe the employee, and how many times is it the problem with the leader?
I think, it probably ends up being more times than not us as the leader than it is our people. I think at the end of the day, like you guys called it out earlier, like they got to know how to win in the role. And if we don't give them a clear map of what winning looks like, it's very impossible for them to ever gain any kind of confidence or lean in and become independent or proactive because they don't know what they're leaning into or what they're proactively committing to. So I think most of the time it is on us. One of the things I feel like our team's trying to wrestle more now with is this difference between coaching and training. And so we use this language a lot, that training is knowledge transfer and coaching is like skill transfer. And I think one of the challenges, and I think Tobin's been doing, more of this in their setup, is we've got to be coaching. And so our leaders have to have the bandwidth that's required to give enough attention to their people to coach them. And coaching is different than just telling them, this is what we need to do and this is how you do it. And so I think it is a combination of both, but yeah, I think it ends up being on us more times than not.
Yes. So over my career, that's what I learned most, that most of those failures was on me as a leader versus on the people that I was working with. So that's always fun to do an assessment on like where you can grow as a leader. And sometimes that means bringing in some outside perspective or some outside help on and working on that for you. So then you're in a position where you can lead from a better position. So that's awesome. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, there's also questions for Shauna, if you guys have any of that. But any of those resources, there's lots of resources on the Accelerate website you can go to. There's like WIP reporting if you're having trouble with your financials. That's super helpful. But then there's also other stuff besides KPIs and reporting, and then the skills matrix. And that's my contact information. I'm happy to answer any questions or be of value if you reach out. It's one of my favorite things to do. Somebody said yesterday that I helped them years ago with some WIP, and anyway, they had since grown their business and sold it, and they were like, that was so valuable. I didn't remember I did that, but it was like the best thing about being here. So my point is that like I learned so much from coming to events like this and learning from other people. Like that is why I love the restoration industry, coming to these events and asking a million questions when I knew nothing. And having people spend the time to invest in me and then turning around and being able to invest in other people or other businesses or your employees. So any other questions? Anything else you want to?
I think that this becomes, we got off on coaching questions and stuff, and this becomes a leadership moment for all of us when we have these, we have potential in our organization, whatever it looks like, the potential that you have in your organization in the form of your employees. and you recognize, and I think that was a very mature statement. You recognize that, hey, maybe I as a leader didn't step up and do enough, and approach it the right way, and found that coaching was, taking a coaching aspect worked better, and I absolutely agree, because with my organization, once I switched to a coaching mentality where I'm not giving the answers, instead I'm asking the questions, and I'm teaching them to fish, it exploded, and it became so much more, just so much more of an enriching, encouraging environment that way. So I think that this is an opportunity for all of us to kind of, have a little inflective moment and say, are you the leader? Are you the leader that does all of these things that Rachel says in order to grow these people? Am I that leader? Because, once you recognize that, maybe I'm a little bit of the roadblock here, and it's you, if you walk away from this with that thought and don't do anything about it, you're choosing the same path. Here you are with Rachel kind of slapping you in the face with it a little bit, and you seeing it. So maybe it's a good opportunity for you to go back to your businesses and take a little action on this. And even if you just start with, hey, I'm just going to coach more. I'm just going to take some time out of my day to do that, and start with, making a skills matrix, just using some of these tools. Start with one. You don't have to get it all in place before you use any of it. Imperfect action, start with one. Start with one of these things. Write it down in your notes and decide you're going to go back and do one thing. I am going to start coaching a couple of employees, or I am going to, get my job profiles in place, or a skills matrix, whatever it is. But start with one and then keep going.
Awesome. Well, I just want to reiterate that you guys are doing brave, amazing things. You're blessing the lives of a lot of people, both your customers, your employees, your coworkers, whoever it is, and keep doing the work. Awesome.